Well, rising family, much love to you all this wonderful, beautiful day. Life is going forth. I know y'all are going forth with it. And if not, it's going forth without you anyways. So, just getting right into it, giving you a overview of my ayahuasca journey, the lessons and or information that was downloaded or unpacked within me. I'm just sharing it with y'all. It's not going to be very, very long because essentially, once you get clear on things, you don't need to fill it up with a bunch of fluff. Get it, get out, boom, you're done. But nevertheless, for the sake of knowledge and how this page goes, I'll give a backdrop. For one, with ayahuasca, there is a lot of spookism that goes along with it. A lot of people, they write about it or they've read about it, and they hear all these things about how harsh it is, I guess, or such a jarring experience. And, you got to be all in a safe realm and got all this safe space stuff and make sure somebody's watching you and, all of this type of stuff, right? Now, granted, I will say that there is some truth in that, because essentially, you want to protect yourself. Not because anything necessarily bad can happen to you taking ayahuasca, but if you're an individual who has no practice looking inside yourself on an actual literal basis, meaning taking your attentive faculties that you use to look around and actually look inside yourself, if you've never done those things before, then yeah, ayahuasca is going to be real crazy for you because it's literally going to hijack your senses and turn them in on themselves, and it'll do it for you, and it will do it for as long and as powerfully as it wants to do it for you, as opposed to you doing it yourself. Kind of like just strapping into a roller coaster, just like that, a psychological roller coaster. So just imagine, again, like I say, you've never meditated, you've never really done any full introspection. You've never journaled in a diary before. You've never, just done any of that inner work. I ain't talking about, no offense to religious stuff, but I'm not talking about, church or going to worship, or praying to whomever. Those things aren't bad. But when we're talking about getting to the actual core of yourself on a cognitive basis, meaning full conscious awareness of what you are and how your soul and or spirit is running around this place, then yeah, doing that said work of looking inside of yourself, it's daunting, one, just to do it on your own, but two, like I say, to literally have a herb that'll just strap you in and just take you there. It can definitely be a roller coaster. And the reasons why it can be a roller coaster is because, as it's written, if you've done any research on this thing, you see some crazy images. You see and or feel, things that might, seem unnatural or too big or too vast to understand or too high or too low. Like, whatever the limitations on your consciousness is and your ability to comprehend, to understand, to feel, to cognate, these, something like an ayahuasca will push you past that limit. And it's intentionally doing so because, again, we're talking about your soul energy, the soul energy, the divine infinite spark that does not die, that lives on forever. That comes from another dimension, like a completely wholly other dimension that is outside of this one that we're operating in right now. And your body is actually a device that's layered on top of it, and it's smothering your actual soul from expressing itself. So the body, in a sense, is almost like an impediment to your actual full expression, to your actual full identity. This is when they talk about like the fall and all of that, the fall of man. It wasn't eating an apple. It was actually becoming a human. Because this device that we're in of self-expression is so limited in comparison to what we are, that we're in a fallen kind of state. And so the same fallen kind of state is what's layered on us that is the barrier between heaven and earth, the barrier between me and God and all of that type of stuff. That barrier is the actual body in and of itself. The barrier is this reality that we're in and of itself. So we have to literally flip the switch on our consciousness, or at least the use thereof, and move our attention away from actually what's around you to what's literally inside of you, and continue to look and penetrate through the actual layers of physical body and emotional / psychological traumas that we have, and emotional and psychological achievements as well. Like, all of those things have to be filtered through to get back to the absolute core of what your soul expression is. And so when you take an ayahuasca, for instance, which is, like I say, really just a purifying substance, a temporarily purifying substance, it pushes out all the toxins if you have a lot of toxins. And also it pushes you past the emotional toxins, which are, like I say, our hang-ups, our memories, just all of the attachments that we have to this reality, whether they be good or bad. The attachments that we have, it pushes you past all of that. And it just brings you right back to the core of your electrical spark. And so when you read about all of these different jarring and, crazy experiences that, people are saying that they're having, what's really happening is they're penetrating through the different veils of their trauma. They're penetrating through the different veils, or the barriers of their own emotional limitations. They're pushing past whatever type of form or limitation, fright, attachment to something, like whatever. They're literally pushing past that external stimuli that is serving as a blockade or a stopgap or a filter to what the soul is trying to express while it's here through your body. And so, with that being said, keep that in mind anytime that you meditate. Keep that in mind anytime you want to do a ayahuasca or some LSD or some acid. I don't recommend LSD or acid. I never tried it, but I know it's synthetic. So I don't deal with the synthetics. I deal with organic. But anyway, that's even neither here nor there, because, again, we're in an illusionary matrix. So even the word organic actually means artificial to the soul. But that's a whole nother lesson, a whole nother discussion. But anywho, when doing whatever one can to try to fully explore their inner self, they meet the psychological barriers, and they have to then, face them. Like they say, face your demons. Facing your demons definitely has a certain aspect of your external self, changing your personality traits. And, if you, hate paying bills, pay your bills type of thing. But those behavioral patterns that exist, those are nothing more than the symptoms of what's going on inside of you. And so essentially, whenever we find ourselves in a place to where we can't or don't want to face life, where life just is like, I want to back out of this whole thing, that's because we've reached a place in our consciousness to where it's time to either level up or go in a completely different direction, because we've reached the end of the road for said experience. And a lot of times, many of us do not want to do those changes. We don't want to go through the work of becoming what it is we need to become. And so because we never look inside of ourselves to see what the heck is going on, we never truly find those answers. And so that's what spurred me to take it. Because, I strive for authenticity. I really strive, for the quote unquote truth, and whatever that means, and all of its different things. But with that, that's what really just inspired me to even go this route, because I've stumbled into a season to where I got outside of my knowingness, outside of my full understanding of what the heck I'm doing here. And, out of a, moment of seeking, I guess, and inevitably finding a plug, someone who was local, I got my hands on some. And actually, thank you, bringing that all the way back, because it's about the spookism thing. As I started, there really shouldn't be anything that you should be afraid of if you're going to take like an ayahuasca, if you're going to do anything that's just related with introspection, anything that's related with darkness, anything that's related with, those type of imageries and those feelings, because Those are the feelings that you came to explore. Those are the things that you came to overcome. Those are the things that you got to get the triumph over. Because without doing so, you miss out, one, on physical treasures that you would have along your journey. But psycho-spiritually, you do not overcome the things that are actually holding you back here on earth, which is literally holding you back from going back to where you came from. So it's of great importance for you to get over your shit. Deal with your shit and get over it. Because if you don't, it creates these barriers that manifest in our life that we, feel like we can't get past. And so you can work through some of these barriers just through regular meditation, through your chakra work, through, your deity altars and things like that. But if you're not into the spookism and that scares you too much, or if you're more of a drug user type, you can take some ayahuasca and you could, essentially strap yourself into your own internal roller coaster and flip the switch and turn it on and let it take you on a journey back to yourself. So with that all being said, now I'll get into what I saw once I started to understand myself more. With my ayahuasca session, I actually set an intention first. I didn't just blindly take it and was like, oh, all right, let's see what's happening. It's always important to have an intention when you do inner work, simply just because it makes it easier. Like, that's it. Like, again, you're talking about your own internal darkness. Like, you close your eyes, you see black. If you fixate yourself on turning more and more into that, you literally just see more and more darkness until you start to stumble upon stuff. And you're like, oh, wait a minute, I can light some stuff up inside myself. And that starts the whole journey. But nevertheless, when you do the introspection and you have an intention, meaning like, why am I doing this? What am I looking for? What am I going for? You will then give yourself a course to navigate so that even though you're going through the dark, you actually do have an end point and a direction. Now, the crazy part about it is in the forefront of your conscious mind, you may not know where you're going, but your subconscious mind that is directly linked to the power of your soul, it knows where it's going. And so this is when that whole spiritual stuff starts to kick in, because our true spiritual power and our spiritual awareness and it is all built upon our ability to trust our subconscious mind, to trust our inner knowingness, to trust the part of us that doesn't die and listen to that part. And so if we have issues with integrating that into our daily life, that means we just got to do more work going inside ourselves and literally trusting what instructions are being given to us as we literally navigate through the dark. Navigating through the dark is an exercise in trust. If you're doing this exercise on yourself, you're building up your inner trust. You build up your inner trust, you build up your inner wisdom. Your inner wisdom is your God self. You become more of God if you build up your own self, build up your own spirit, go through your own darkness. See, I did that. But anywho, dealing with my own darkness, the intention that I had was to get in touch, fully unpack without any doubts of who and what I am. Again, like I say, I got a place in the season where I got a little too confused, a little too distraught. And I was like, man, I just need the answer. Just show me which way I need to go, because I'm tired of not being sure. And so I got my hands on some. Oh, man. One more just slight pause on that. Bookmark that before we get to it. This is one of the other reasons why it's such a jarring experience when we talk about the whole psychoschematics of this thing. Why ayahuasca's experience, such a jarring experience, why also just meditation for the non-trained meditator, or just an individual who doesn't practice it that often. One of the reasons why this stuff is so jarring and are so difficult to experience is because of how many of us use our mind. The mind has two hemispheres, left brain, right brain. The left brain, the orientation of that wiring is designed primarily for the use of here, for you navigating the space that you use your conscious mind for. However, the right brain, the orientation of that wiring is used for the transmission and the understanding of the subconscious mind, or the spirit world, or the spirit aspect of yourself in those workings. Correct? So with those two, and not just the spirit world, also your inner body, the autonomic I may not be using the right word, but essentially the part of your brain that runs these things inside of you that you are not consciously thinking of. So with those two parts of the brain in operation, your spirit brain and your man brain or your mammal brain, the goal is essentially to unify these two hemispheres. They literally are separated down the center point of your brain. This is every single human being. And so the actual electrical sparks that they are initially routed in, they are routed in a divisive, or I won't say divisive, they're routed in opposite directions. This is a part of this whole trap. This is the fall. This is the separation between man and God. This is the separation between spirit and matter. Like with all of that dualism, those dualistic images and things of that nature, all of those things are actually talking about the wiring of our actual brain matter and how we use our energy. And so the vast majority of us, when we are manifested here into this reality, regardless of whatever culture that you're in, regardless of whatever political and our family and our geographical situation that you're in, the vast majority of us are born into a way of looking at this place that is not singular in thought. It is dualism, is dualistic in thought, where there's some type of separation between you and this and you and that. And however that thing is manifested and oriented, that becomes the ground basis and the ground floor of how you interpret and see everything. And so because the way that your brain is just operating from the moment that it can receive and interpret and understand instruction, the wiring in the building up of your consciousness, the use of your actual brain matter, goes from being a singular entity where the wiring and the electrical sparks are doing its best to bridge the actual gaps together, to being wired to simply just going apart. And so because of the way that we are taught to be oriented into these bodies, into this reality, we literally reorient the flow of our consciousness and our internal electrical systems. And so because of that, it creates the barrier, the initial barrier that creates literally a house of consciousness that is built up instead of being one huge open vessel where you just pile everything into it, almost like a warehouse. You know, like just imagine a big old warehouse. There's no walls inside of the warehouse. It's just a big thing and everything stacked inside of it. You are now building a castle that has all of these different rooms and different segments and different uses and different that and that. Now, you would think on the surface that may not sound bad. Like, oh, well, what's wrong with a castle? A castle, again, the use thereof is for this reality construct. But the blueprint of your brain is more of a warehouse singular entity construct. So you take the natural blueprint of how your brain is wired and you literally start to chop it up and segment it and break it down and put it into these little boxes. And this is, oh, this section over here is for something else, but this section over here is for something else. And you continually segment and segment and separate and separate and separate to the fact that you forget that you are one singular giant entity. And so because of this for forgetting, the actual use of the muscles that govern and run that singular part of the brain that's trying to reconnect itself, it's shut down because it's not being used. It fully atrophies. And so out of its atrophy, the vast majority of us downgrade our power level spiritually, downgrade our level of awareness spiritually, downgrade our ability to interpret spiritually. And so we go through this life doing that all through our early years, through our whole early years. And so by the time we get to a level of consciousness to where we have some sense of autonomy, the subconscious mind starts to kick in and realize that it's been split in a bunch of different directions. And as it's been split in a bunch of different directions, that is what kicks in that whole, essentially the need for one to discover or join or to be a part of a religion. Because the religion positions itself as an entity that can stand in the gap between the two hemispheres of the brain. It stands in the gap between your fears and your desires. It stands in the gap between God and the devil. It stands in the gap between heaven and hell. It stands in the gap between whatever negativity you want to insert. Now, on the surface, that's not necessarily a bad thing because it's standing in the gap on your behalf. But the thing that they never tell you is that they are the perpetuators of the gap. They never tell you that you can close the gap. They tell you to put themselves in between as the mediator, but never tell you that you can close your own gap. So, for whatever it's worth, even though religion has its wonderful tenets, it still serves as a middleman for your own consciousness. And so things like ayahuasca, when a person may take it, or things like meditation, when a person may get into it, they can't handle it. Even just a regular meditation. When people start to meditate, they're like, oh, I can't do it. I can't quiet my mind. Or, the visions are too crazy. I don't understand what the hell I'm seeing. Like these two extremes happen. These extremes are happening because we have been taught not to unify our minds anymore. We've been taught to divide in every sense of the purpose. So because of all of these divisions and ayahuasca, which strive to unify, that's why we see all of these visions. That's why we go through all of these different things. If you read a lot of the ayahuasca journals that people have, they face a lot of satanic type images. The vast majority of those people who are writing that, they have a Christian or they have an Islamic, Christian, Hebrew background. They went to private school, Christian private school. They went to church, they was raised Muslim, they're Jewish, that type of thing. This video is here for the Western world. So, if you in India, you have a whole different thing to deal with, which is pretty cool. But like I said, we're dealing with the Western mind, the modern mind, stuff like that. So, again, just essentially, we're all just inundated with division. And so when we try to go through these psychological revisions of unity, the things that you have been taught to divide against have to be brought back together. So even though in your whole emotional template, you've been taught to hate a devil figure and hate demonic images and things like that, and on the other side, you've been taught to love and adore XYZ type of images, that ayahuasca is going to bring them together and freak you out if you were not ready. Just straight up. It'll literally show you something kooky like Jesus, who's got devil horns and he's chasing after you and he's trying to save you with fire in his hands. You're going to be like, what the fuck? You're going to freak out. And so the freak out is literally your actual brain matter that's coming together that you have been intentionally fighting against its own self with. And they're finally coming back together saying, nope, we coming together and we finna fix this shit that you created. So that's why people see such jarring things, because they created them themselves through how they've been taught to divide from their own selves unknowingly. That was a lot. So with that, again, now being said, I'll finally get to my own personal journey. So with my own personal journey, as the video is entitled, The Wolf and the Cyclops. So with the wolf and the Cyclops, I was given these images because of, again, my intention, like I told you before. I wanted to get to the core of who/what I am and what the heck am I doing here. And so once I made that intention, centered myself, and then boom, took the drink. About 10 minutes into it, finally kicked in, and I was whisked away into the South Pole. This initial imagery, I was flying over the South Pole, and you see all the ice and that whole thing. That was pretty dope. And initially I was, again, like I say, it showed you stuff that you either don't understand or you're not ready for. So initially I was like, man, what the hell? This don't make no sense. I'm black. What the hell we doing at the polar ice caps for? But it just kept going. And eventually it panned over to some dude, just random guy, who had a leash, a multi-leash of a bunch of little dogs, little puppy dogs. And they were just, just running behind the little man as he's walking down the ice caps. And eventually he just keeps walking. He's not paying them any attention. And the little puppies, they then grow the dogs, with each step, they're just getting more mature. They grew the dogs. Then they eventually grew into ferocious, kind of scary looking kind of dogs. And then they grew even more into some scary wolves. And as they kept growing more and more ferocious, the dude started to lose more and more control of the animals, of the wolves. And also, by the time they became full-on wolves, their eyes kept flipping. Their eyes kept switching between just a regular 2-eye and a Cyclops. 2-eye Cyclops. Like it just kept like just doing it. Just 2-eye Cyclops, over and over and over again. And so they just kept getting rowdy. And like I said, I'm watching, like from afar, I'm watching him lose control of his dogs, or his wolves now, as they transform, of his wolves. And then next thing you know, he loses fucking control and they start coming at me. And there's the ayahuasca part. They're like, oh boy, the scary imagery. And so they're coming at me, and as they're coming at me, they're growing in size. So, they go from like the size of what a wolf is. But like I say, with every step, they're just like just imagine how freaky that could be, right? And so yeah, they're running at me, and I didn't necessarily get scared. Reason being is because I've done a lot of inner work before. I've had some other really crazy imagery come along my way, but also, like I said, I've those who know me know I've done spiritual studies since about 2010. Yeah, actually, 2010. Like even on a professional level, became studied the occult, all of that type of stuff. So I'm I don't play these games and act like I'm woke and stuff. Like, no, I actually do study consciousness. But anyway, that's not to brag. That's just to say how this thing went down. But due to my past experiences and all my past studies and things like that, I already knew in the forefront of my mind that whenever you are in a nightmare scape, whenever you are in some type of, fear-based dream, a fear-based dreamscape, that you are doing nothing more than facing a barrier or a limitation within yourself. Like, I know this. So because me knowing this, and again, I can put it to use because the last part I forgot about ayahuasca is that one way to describe it is essentially being thrust into a full-on dream while you're fully awake. You bridge the gap. Again, it's the same thing. You bridge the gap, like the dream world and the real world. The dream world is not necessarily the real world either, but the astral plane. The astral plane experience and your conscious experience, they slam together. And so you're literally having both experiences at the same time. So your dreamscape, though, when you're in a dreamscape and you're in a nightmare realm, or you're in some type of block, or you're strapped down, or just whatever, whatever those different things are that represent a bad dream or some type of fear, all you're doing is encountering a limitation within yourself, or something that you left behind, something that you're so worried about, but you so deeply worried about it that you forgot about it. And it's still in the back of your mind. You're trying to act normal. Like those type of things are what's popping up in the dreamscape when you see such bad imagery. So, once I realized that the wolf was coming at me, I stopped resisting the image of it coming at me, getting bigger, like it was going to eat me. And I just turned around. Well, I didn't turn around because I was facing it, but I just stopped the resistance feeling and I let it eat me. Like, this is the type of stuff you have to let happen if you're going to do this type of work. I try to put a bookmark there because I want to bookmark and go different places so many times. But this is the type of stuff where you have to do that type of work. You have to let it eat you. You have to let it destroy you. You have to let whatever it is that you feel is coming up in your dreams that you're trying to run away from, you deal with the worst possible outcome. One of the reasons being is because it's a dream. You're not going to die in your dream. I done been shot, stabbed, killed, dropped off a building, set on fire before. Like, everybody didn't have bad dreams. And what happens? You wake up. So essentially in this exact same instance with this whole ayahuasca stuff, knowing that you've just raised up your dream awareness to your conscious awareness, that, there was nothing for me to be afraid of, because also there's no such thing as a 40-foot wolf. You ever seen one? No. So I said, screw it. Eat me then. And boom, homeboy ate me. And it was funny. And as soon as he ate me and I was gobbled up, it was essentially I became the wolf. it wasn't like he gobbled me when I was dead. It was boop, and I literally immediately assumed the the viewpoint of that wolf, and then boom, I went off running as the wolf, and so then I was running off by myself, and just running off by myself, and that was it for a while, like just running, and eventually, I look over to the side. Then there's like one wolf, and then I look over to the other side, and it's like 3 more wolves, and I look back, it's like 6 of them, and then it's like 11 of us, so we're just going, and we just doing our thing, and we eventually like overtook that land. We overtook that landscape, and we ran that show, and so then on comes the white man in the vision, and it was weird and disjointed, but like I say, it's a dreamscape, so it's not supposed to make, cognitive, basic sense. But nevertheless, then on comes another white man. I really cannot discern if it was the same one, the one that had us on the leash before, or if it was a new one. But nevertheless, it was a white man. And again, the imagery is very specific. And it was this white man, and he had essentially like fallen off a cliff. And I'm watching him fall off this cliff into nothingness, into a huge black abyss of nothingness. And as he's falling, he's just falling. And then eventually over time, what seemed to be like a formation of, some type of walls, or whatever, they started to kind of come into view, And as he's falling, you see the walls closing in. So apparently as he's falling down some type of, cylinder thing. And so as he's falling, you start to see now the walls closing in and forming around him more and more and more and more. And then you start to see what these walls are made of. These walls are they're simply made of like different technical things, like, not technical things, let me not say that. It was made of metal, and the metal lining of the walls were jagged. So it was kind of, not say thorny, but like just sharp and poking and blades and stuff like that. And so as this dude is falling and flailing in the wind, he's just cutting himself, cutting his face and like getting all screwed up. And so as he continues to fall and the walls just keep closing in on him, it closes in more and more. As it closes in more and more, the walls become more technical. Like instead of just being a random blade, it's now a buzzsaw, or it's now some type of mechanical device that's like doing all like this and shit, like it just became more and more technically sophisticated. And as it became more and more technically sophisticated, it started to destroy the man more and more and more. He's just more bloodied, more cut, more, he lost a foot, then he loses an arm and And then eventually it all got all the way down till he reached the end of this, collapsing tunnel. And it was just basically like a meat grinder, a metal atomic android meat grinder that was just gobbling him up. And he was just getting gobbled until he literally got shitted out the back end of what turned out to be, because again, like this dreamscape then brought me, it like snapped me way out of it so I could see what I was looking at, I guess. It showed me that the man was basically being gobbled up by his own devices, i.e. these whole androids and the robots and the that we're dealing with right now. And so, that's all of that. It gave me all of this imagery, and I can't tell if it was like between 45 minutes to 2 hours, but between 45 minutes to 2 hours, it gave me all of that. And so, again, now, as being someone who meditates and knows how to research, I know that when you come out of your ayahuasca, when you come out of an intense dream, regardless, you need to go look up what these symbols mean, because the subconscious mind doesn't speak English, doesn't speak French, doesn't speak Spanish. It speaks in energy signatures. And so as energy signatures, come or transmit down into this low vibrational existence that we're in, they come into a singular image or, subsequent images that give you a full thing to unlock and unpack. I.e., it showed me these particular specific images of a wolf on a leash, a wolf running towards me, a wolf in his own, a wolf running by itself, and then a wolf in a pack. Like, so yeah, it was a wolf, but it was a wolf doing these 4 specific things. And so as you unpack, as you go and look up the image and the symbolism behind it, the universal symbols, and then you look up what certain activities mean for, psychological symbols, you then literally are given all of these things that you could weave together like a puzzle to get the understanding of your subconscious mind. So, like I say, the biggest things that stuck with me were the wolf and those 4 images. And like I said, the last part about the dude getting gobbled up by the android, that didn't really need interpretation for me, because that's just a symbol of, what's happening today. The cycle of images where, man, or whoever's running the show of the era thinks they're so big and great that they create something that inevitably destroys them, So, and I was watching the cycle of ages that we're in right now, because we're close to the end of that age, where I saw the reenactment of this show. And I say reenactment specifically because this has happened before. And I say reenactment of this show because we're currently in the age where, we could just say the white man, he's inventing a new creature called the android, and the android will overtake him. Well, as it serves, like I say, this is all the cult lore stuff. This ain't stuff you finna find in your history books, but the shit is out here. Like it really is, if you know how to find the books and stuff and you want to pay for them because they're expensive. We did the same thing as Negroes. It's written history. We were in the space where we ran the earth. We created a more android, super functional being that was supposed to do the work for us, and we got overrun. So this is where we're at a certain cycle in the age to where it's repeating said thing again. And so I was given that imagery because, again, I was given that imagery because it ties into the expression of the wolf and this whole, like I said, it's all going to come together because it all works. It all works in a singular thing, or in a circular way. So again, the imagery of the man getting bottled up by the android is a symbol for the age in the precipice of where we are as far as this human timeline thing is concerned. Because again, time does not go linearly. It cycles. It just replays itself while it advances itself at the same time. So like it just makes itself more and more advanced at what it did before. So it makes perfect sense that as far as this advancement, concept goes, like I say, we as Negroes and our indigenous self created these, what seems to be on the surface, more functional white people because they could do all this other great shit and overtake the world, from everybody. But at the expense of them being more soulless, Now, we can sit here and argue all that love and light crap, but when we look at the full history of colonialism, imperialism, and white idolatry of across the globe, when that shit just magically appeared, when we read all of their history books from that time frame and the history books of the people who they slaughtered and destroyed, it's pretty clear that they were soullessly just massacring everything, without any feeling, without any remorse, without any compassion. That is an aspect of soullessness. The exchange of the soullessness made them that much more functional in the material world. That's why they could do and organize and make shit happen and build this shit and da-da-da-da-da and da-da-da-da-da, blow up that country and da-da-da. We still sitting here like, damn, yo, I ain't even thinking about what they doing over there in France. What the fuck y'all worried about it for? How the hell y'all got troops over there already? Jeez. Same thing with the robot is about to take place for the next coming of the age. You got the white folks doing all this great, amazing stuff. Whoop-de, whoop-de, whoop. This is all awesome. This is all, look at what we did. We're not good enough at doing that yet. Let's go make something. So you actually may think that I'm making this up. No, look up D-Wave and CERN right there on YouTube. The creators of it said it. I'm just regurgitating literally what they said. And so they're intentionally creating robots that have quantum computing skills that can outthink and outperform humans. Just like we made these entities that can outperform us because of what we were trying to work on. So the cycle of ages, again, was showing me that particular imagery, and it showed it to me last, and I'm showing it to you first, or telling to you first. It showed me that image last because it came into the aspect of knowing who I am, and the knowingness of who I am is how I complete my own journey. So I can avoid being swallowed up. So I can avoid being caught up into the madness of the next creation, of the next cycle, of the next age, which will swallow everyone up if they participate in it. But with all of that, it goes into now finally these symbols and how all of this, makes sense. I was shown the image of the wolf because once I finally unpacked what all of the symbols are, the universal symbols are, it helped me fully understand why I act the way that I act. And it was like that makes sense. Whew. I thought I was tripping, right? I'll get right into it. It says, in our culture, wolves are highly misunderstood animals and have gained the reputation of being cold-blooded. But in reality, wolves are friendly, social, and intelligent creatures. They are proud hunters and not ravaging killers. First thing, just dealing with those different layers of our body and our emotions that are the short circuits or the bottlenecks to our soul expression. Same thing with the same thing exists in the same linear or stacked, motion with our emotional templates. And our emotional templates are usually governed are influenced by our zodiac. And so, as I say, as this thing is unpacking who I am and is showing me just in the different layers how all of this thing permeates, it lined right up with it saying the wolf is the totem of being, seemingly a cold-blooded, but is honestly friendly and intelligent. People who know Sagittarius, like myself, we say things that fucking, just destroy people, and we could do it in a heartbeat. Like we'll crack a joke that we think is funny, but has everybody questioning us, be like, was he serious? Because that was viciously mean. Like that's happened to me so many times. And I'm like, what? My bad. I ain't even think about it. I just said it because I thought it was funny, and I thought it was funny because I was of the level of intelligence to know that the shit wasn't real. Like what I was saying was a comedic jab, it wasn't like an actual attack on somebody's personhood. But it plays right into the archetype of how the wolf is presented or how the wolf is misunderstood in the world, because our zodiac lines right up with how people see us. Boom. Continues on. It continues even on. It says wolves prefer diplomacy and retreat over open hostility or fights, but this is not because of cowardice. It is because of intelligence. Like you could ask my mom. My mom used to tell me this type of stuff. She said, you were always a lover. She's like, even when you was like 4 years old and had to take you to daycare and all the kids would be acting crazy, you would always just go around and like give them a hug or something to make them calm down. And I was like, I was? She was like, heck yeah. And I was like, wow. And I remember just having that conversation with her because she was telling me how I seemingly got older and got out of that characteristic and I became more of a hard ass, and I eventually confessed to her that, yeah, one of the reasons why I became that is because, dealing with women, they don't like soft men, these quotation soft men. And I was tired of being misunderstood as soft because I'm so freaking nice. Same mischaracterization things here going on. So, where it goes on. Hold on, let's see. It says, although a wolf, and in physical fight, defeating a wolf is very difficult. The wolf has great courage, stamina, and strength. In addition to that, the wolf maintains a network of loyal friends and family for when times get tough. Although a wolf certainly has the strength and knowledge to stand alone, he shows us the importance of family and friends. Wolves are highly social animals. Wolves have a strong sense of family while maintaining individualism. They truly are free spirits, even though their packs are highly organized. Wolves teach us the balance between solitude and socializing. And again, that is me, like to the T. Part of the reasons why I took ayahuasca was to actually unpack this whole socialism issue, so to speak. Because as I've gotten older, I've become way more hermitish. Like I don't spend too much time with a lot of people at all. Before I started to fully, unpack my makeup so I can get back to my soul, I just operated with, just having people around me all the time. And again, that's not a bad thing. That's a part of the characteristic of the wolf. But it also shows the flip side of that, meaning like I need and desire the solitude. Like I got to get people away from me. Like y'all are bothersome to me sometimes. Like go that way. And so I used to actually feel bad about it because I'm like, dang, y'all used to be all friendly and want to be around everybody. Nah, I could care less. But I realized that that was just the surface. You know, that was just the surface and me just being used to being around people because that's just how I was brought up. I had never really looked inside of myself to see, you know, like what is my true emotional template? You know, how much of people can I truly stand? How often do I really want to be around you mojos? But it goes even further on in other sources. Like, again, I'm pulling this stuff from different places. That's also another thing, too. If you're going to research anything, especially spiritual stuff, though, you got to look at different sources. You cannot just look at one thing and be like, oh, yeah, that's what it is. Mm-hmm. No. You have so many dimensions about yourself. You got to explore all of those dimensions. This is a continuum. The things that are happening in the spirit are a continuum or an expression that's manifesting down here. If you got multiple facets or layers of yourself, you better explore multiple layers and facets of books. Shoot. But it says this, the wolf is a symbol of the night. This can seem loathsome and scary to us, but it is also the time when through dreams, we may discover valuable things about ourselves. What has this whole thing been about? I freaking end up taking the ayahuasca ultimately because I am the wolf archetype that the ayahuasca ended up showing me that I am. It was a whole singular thing. Everybody who takes this stuff is going to have the same type of experience if they know how to look up and research what they find and know how to look within themselves and accept what they see. It says this is a lonely path. Again, going back into my loner stage, when I really cracked the egg on my own psyche, cracked the egg on my own spirit to get into my own soul, my behavioral patterns changed. I became way more like by myselfish, and it just happened because, again, I cracked that egg and started to just draw nearer to my core. So as I drew nearer to my core, drawing near to my inner strength, my inner wolf, my inner primal self, which needed to go on its own personal journey. It says to truly come and understand yourself, you must be alone, undeterred by beliefs, judgments, and views of others. The wolf teaches us to learn about our inner self and to discover our inner power and strength. However, to achieve this, we must take risks and face our deepest fears. Now, again, that's cliche for darn near everybody, 90% of us. But for my particular primal archetype, this is what I'm tasked with. This type of stuff, if I never do, I never get any real fulfillment. Never get really any full understanding. I never get back my happy space, to be honest with you. Because after this ayahuasca and learning to bring it all back, it put me back into a happy space. Because, shoot, for about, I ain't even gonna lie, I would say about 4-5 years, yo. I was a combination of too militant, too sad, too angry, too upset, too distraught, and just kind of cycling in and out of those different things. But again, going through all of those was just me penetrating through the different psychological barriers, the mismanaged expectations, the dualistic imprints, all of that stuff that I had laced upon myself. I was just going back, penetrating through and just pull that out. Gotta pull it out. Gotta pull it out. But as you're pulling it out, you're literally pulling it. So it's got to go through the different surfaces. And when something is at the surface, regardless of if it's good or bad, the energy that thing will transmit through you. So, you know, if you've got some latent sadness that you're trying to get out, as you pull through it, you will encounter that emotion. But you have to go through to lift it off you. So it goes forward. The wolf teaches us to learn about our inner self and discover our inner power and strength. However, to achieve this, we must take risks and face our deepest fears. The wolf requires sincerity. See, I said the word earlier, sincerity. Like, I sincerely want to know the truth. I'm just trying to find some shit out. I don't want to be confused no more. That's sincerity. And it says, through demanding a lot of us, much is given in return. The spirit helper is always here to help, giving us extraordinary powers of endurance. Learn to hear the voice within yourself, which in silence is a clear sound of the wolf howling in the night within you. Same thing with me. The biggest part, like I say, is that though demanding a lot of us, much is given in return. I ain't gonna lie, yo, I've struggled with that my whole life. It always seems like I'm the guy. Like, why I gotta be the guy? Like, I'm at work now, at my job now. there's always this thing where it always just seems like I'm the one person who's paying attention, who happens to see the customer come in, and I make eye contact with the customer. So now they want me to help them, even though there's 6 other people who's 15 steps closer to the customer. But because none of them are aware that somebody walked in the building, I got to get up, walk all the way over there to greet them to make sure that all of our customer service rules are followed carefully. Right? I'm always the one chosen to go the furthest to go fix some shit that other people around are just totally oblivious of. And I've always have been like, God damn it, why do I always see the problems? God damn it, why do people want me to be the counselor? God damn it, why can't I go have some fun? I got to go help you after you done had fun. Right? That's because I'm a wolf. And regardless of how much I want to own it or don't want to own it, it is what I am. And no matter how I try to deny that energy of me, that's what's coming out. And that's what people pick up on. And that's why everything around me manifests itself the way that it does. And so, because I have a lack of acceptance of myself, in a sense, which played itself out in the aspect of the dream where the wolf was chasing me and coming at me, the lack of acceptance, the lack of willingness, the lack of becoming, the lack of, authentically presenting myself to the world, the unwillingness, the unwillingness to want to deal with the stress of being pulled to the spotlight and to the front, like all of that makes up the full expression of what I am. And if I continue in denial of that, I won't be in my happy place like I am now. I won't be my best self. I won't get the full expression out of myself. I won't exercise my soul in completion. And not doing so plays into the second half of that dream that I told you already about being bottled up in the cycle of the age. And so here's another aspect. It says the wolf reminded men of their domestication and their inner struggle with it. The wolf became an image of remaining wild in sexuality, and in a Jungian sense, it became the men's shadow of the undesired and the unwanted. For those of us with a Western background, we often do not realize the depths and subtle differences and the similarities between these two sides of the shadow of our struggles. Especially as the wolf examines reincarnation, spiritual energy, gift exchange, the vitality of the body, the spirit, and the spirit of the soul, the old world view of everything in flux begins, balances out from, and ends with the polarities of yin and yang, which are balanced in transformation through gain and corresponding loss of the wolf's journey. Even reading that was a lot. Like, damn it, why I gotta experience life this way? But that's the part of the task. The same way I'm like, damn it, you got your own damn it too. That's a part of being in this earth thing. That's a part of being in a human body. That's a part of having a personality. You got all of that shit. It's then layered itself upon you. Now you got to get it off. And if you're going to do true spiritual work, if you're going to do true work for your authenticity, if you're going to do true work to be your own personal Christ, your own Christos energy, your own divine infinite spark, all of those wonderful flowery things, if you are going to be any of that, you have to accept the full lot in your life. You have to accept the full responsibility of your life. And the reason why you have to, here's the trick. It's not because somebody else gave you those tasks. It's because you selected it. You chose it. You did it. It's your fault. And so if you know that you were not bringing your best self to the surface, you were doing nothing more than preparing yourself to live again in that next cycle of ages. That's what this whole thing was saying. Because I'm making this video because, yeah, it's for me and, me chronicling and getting it all together. But it's also for me to be what I am, this wolf being and this wolf creature with my task and and me being fully aware of what I know I need to do. I got to be the person who stands in the gap for all of this stuff. And I have to be the bridge builder for consciousness. I have to be that lone wolf who also works with people. I have to be the one who just happens to see something that nobody else is paying attention to and extend that olive branch of knowledge and help and deference. Like, I have to be all of that. Like, and I'm not even telling you about the actual minute things that how this plays down into the subtle annoyances of becoming authentic. But I simply am giving, a large scale overview of that because what's happening with me is what's happening with you in your own right. You may not be a wolf, but you might be a meerkat. You might not be a meerkat, but you might be a bear. But you are something. If you in a body, you watching this video, you are a something. And figuring out if you don't know is your number one goal. Because if you don't, you're just going to get swallowed up by the world. Hell, if you're watching this video, you probably have been swallowed up just a little bit. If you that far down taking a damn ayahuasca drink like I was. But like I say, you can pull yourself out. You can pull yourself out at any given moment, which is the funny part, because all of this stuff is about you and your mind and how you want to connect them brave waves back together. How much are you going to do the work to actually manifest a unified life? How much are you going to continue to go deep within yourself and allow that authentic expression to run you? There's even more. It says to have a white wolf dream, because I actually had, like I say, polar ice cap, so it was a white wolf. It wasn't a black wolf. Another symbol as well. To have a white wolf dream signifies courage and victory. Therefore, you can see the light even in your darkest hours. What is the archetype of a Sagittarius? We're too positive. Oh, you're so positive. Why are you so positive, Ahmad? I'd be looking at folks like, how are you not? Like, I don't know. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't even think about it. Same thing. It's a part of the natural imprint of what I'm made of. This ain't because I'm some, oh, he's so special and he's not negative and No, I'm a wolf. You need some positivity? Come help me. I'll probably have something to say. You got some crazy situation you telling me about? I most likely can poke holes in the areas of why that thing is so bad. Like, I can just see it and I can just do it. And so, this is just a part of who I am. And as I say, as you go down the list and looking up these different sources and understanding more and more, it encourages you, because I'm feeling more encouraged. Because once you work with these things, that's how you find the work that you do. And you can get more in line, or not even more, you can get all the way in line with what's called a life purpose, quotations. Because again, you can do whatever you want. There's no limitations on this thing other than what you put on yourself. But as far as your manifestation here in the human body, you got to figure out a way. You got to go on a journey. You got to do something that's going to lend you some type of realization, and only journeys will do so. So find out your spirit animal. Find out the core of your primal self, the central point of your central spark, and what is the imprint that is made out of. Because once you get that, you can get back into your true power center, your true power structure, and then you could get your soul evolution and your soul transformation going. Let me pause. This is weird lighting, isn't it? I hate how the light hits my neck right here, so it seems like I got this one weird muscle that's poking out. It's on the same side too, but the shadows don't match. Just had to say that. Anyway. Last aspect for the wolf, and then it goes into the Cyclops, because they actually kind of link together. Again, it's all linked together, but you'll see. The dark side of the wolf, in this imagery, which is really slick, is actually Fenrir from the Norse mythology. Because, there's always you have to look at all sides of this thing. Don't just be looking at the awesomeness and oh yeah, that's great. Yeah, I'm good, I'm great. All that bad stuff, no, don't worry about that. No, you gotta look at the other side too. The other side, we're talking about in the legends of the wolf and the totems of the wolf, is Fenrir. Fenrir is the son or the created being out of Loki, who is like the enemy of who's the Satan of Norse mythology. He essentially made his own, what are those things? Like in Christendom, it is the four horsemen, of Armageddon. The Norse version of that, he's got his own animals, and Fenrir, the wolf, is one that gobbles up reality. Like it says, when Fenrir is let loose, his jaw, his bottom jaw will scrape across the bottom of the earth, and his mouth will swallow up the sky, and he will gobble everything up completely. Now, when we're looking at on the surface of this is some evil archetype, oh my God, this is the devil type of thing, right? But again, when you're looking at things spiritually, not religiously, spiritually, in its attempts is to, again, bring all of your brain matter together in a very tangible sense, while religion seeks to spread it apart. When you use your spiritual eye and you encounter any type of deity, as it's written, that's quote unquote destructive and wants to destroy the earth and it's killing people and all that type of stuff, those are symbols for the ego that it's trying to destroy. Now, again, let's say that's a whole nother lesson, so I ain't got time to be trying to re-educate you on all of that. You just look it up yourself. It's very consistent. That when you look at all of these different archetypes of, these evil gods or these demons and stuff like that, and they do all of this, they rain all of this destruction upon the earth. The destruction upon the earth that they're doing and the evil destruction against human beings is about what I told you initially, that you are a divine spark and your body is layered and smacked and smashed all on top of this, inclusive of this reality, which is the main impediment for your soul expression. Reality itself is working against you to express yourself. If you're watching this video, you know that. Hell, if you go to church, you know that. The world has pushed you into church out of that knowingness. The world has pushed you to ayahuasca out of that knowingness. The world has pushed you into this spiritual, what the hell? Something else got to be going on here because this ain't it. So reality itself is actually the thing that's working against your own soul. And so these creatures like a Fenrir who's gobbling up reality, this is actually a symbol for them gobbling up your former limitations, for you gobbling up your fixation on your consciousness of being around you. This is the Bible cliche where they say, your God is bigger than your problems. You are in the world, but not of the world. Those same type of mantras where it's used to remind you that you are a spirit, that you are not this human thing, that you do not belong here, that you have a greater expression of yourself, a greater dwelling space. Creatures like Fenrir are actually agents from the other side, so to speak, who are intentionally and ferociously trying to wake you up back to it. So they will do whatever it takes, inclusive of eating you. Because again, all you do is reincarnate. Like say if it were to literally happen, you would just reincarnate. But that disastrous experience that you had in that last life will be imprinted upon your Akashic records so that when you reincarnate again, you got one more thing in the back of your mind, your little baby brain as it gets reassembled, that's going to be used as a catalyst that will create another event that'll either have you running back to church or running ayahuasca or running or whatever, because your soul will not let you stay here. Your soul will not let you die here. Well, it can't die. Your soul will never be satisfied with anything the earth has to offer. Your soul will never find this place to be the best place to be. That's why you're always wanting something. That's why you're always looking for something. That's why you always got to fill yourself with something. That's why you always have to eat, sleep, and drink and reset and recharge. Because your soul is bigger than anything that can be supplied in this physicality that we call life. And so a Fenrir, a Loki, a Satan, a Lucifer, a whomever that you want to tack on as some demon, if you are not ready to bring yourself to the awareness that you are the expression of those things, and that there is a reason why you are an expression of those things, you will never be able to navigate into the deepest parts of yourself. You will never be able to get that full clarity that you seek. You will never be able to be empowered to your maximum ability if you know that there's higher levels of movement for you. And so bringing all of this stuff together, and like I say, in an ayahuasca experience, forcing yourself, giving yourself no other choice but to bring this stuff together, you will have no other conclusion that I am both the light and the dark, that I am both the good and the bad, and that I am capable of everything. The only limitations that exist are the ones that I have on myself. And when you come back to that awareness and integrate it back with the imprint of how you chose to manifest here, you can then move. You could then go forward. You could then go and recharge or build up your awareness of your knowingness, like I talked about in the beginning. The awareness of who and what you are and operating out of that power structure. And it closes with the last part, the Cyclops. Because remember I said the wolf, he just had regular 2 eyes and Cyclops, 2 eyes, Cyclops, right? The psychological imprints for the Cyclops is the pineal gland, the third eye. Now, the third eye has a couple different functions, but primarily for this whole woke stuff, spiritual stuff. When we talk about the third eye, we're talking about your pineal gland that has receptors, antenna receptors in it that can transmit information and are light codes, things that are above the speed above the speed of light. And it actually can interpret these things if you build up that muscle, if you decalcify that muscle, if you essentially put that muscle to use. And you could have, like I said, information downloaded or whatever that come from existences that are wider and or more profound than this one. And so as it comes together with this whole Cyclops imagery with the wolf and how the wolf's charging at me and everything, it showed me that, as I've really just been saying, which is really the message for all of us, that until you face and accept yourself and express yourself fully, you will not be able to get the use out of your third eye. You will not be able to get the full use out of your ability to see. Because again, when the wolves were doing that 1 eye, 3 eye flippage, it was when they were getting more rowdy, more ferocious and scary, and when they were running at me. And again, as the imagery shows, when things are running at you, that's a symbol that you're running away from something. It's trying to catch you. And so as it's trying to catch me, it's showing me its single-eyed expression because I'm running away from my pineal gland self. I'm running away from the fully actualized, expression and sight of my own inner wisdom. And the funny part about it is, as it all comes together, because if you are having truly, truly profound spiritual experiences, you should get what's called revelation, quote unquote. And revelation is essentially taking something that's already widely accepted knowledge, and you are now being gifted with a new awareness of it, some deeper level of it, or some new level of interconnectedness with it that other people may not have known. And consequently, I got that. The whole thing with the third eye and running from it in self-expression revealed to me that the true third eye, because again, everybody else's third eye, pineal gland, and see other worlds, and that's all about if you've got wonderful skills to do some X-Men mutant type stuff. You can do that even if you're not spiritual. If you just learn about the pineal gland on some biology stuff and do all of the decalcification stuff just because you are a biologist, you can unlock the same capabilities too. It doesn't have anything to do with an actual communication and or desire to want to be on the other side. The true aspect of the third eye that actually activates it, that gets people to see the deepest levels or the furthest levels of sight, actually comes from the true third eye, which is the heart, your heart chakra. And consequently, it's the true third eye because it is the center point of your being. The center point of your being is where the divine spark that comes from the dimension outside of this one exists. So it is the actual embodiment of what you're trying to see with the third eye. You have it inside of your heart already. And you're busy trying to transmit and see some shit from here when actually it already comes from here. And consequently, the third concept of it plays in perfect harmony. Because where is the heart? Counting from your crown chakra. Crown, third eye, throat. How many chakras did I just count? 1, 2, 3, and then you get to the heart. Oh, look, let's go from the bottom. Root chakra, sacral chakra, solar plexus. How many was that? 3. And then you get what? To the heart. Same thing with your pineal vision. The only thing that unlocks the highest levels of your pineal sight is a balanced individual. The person who is balanced is the person who's operating from their balancing chakra, which is the heart. If you are going to operate in full sincerity, which is full balance, which is full transmission of your energy without any bottlenecks, without any filters, without any setbacks, you're going to operate from the center. And the center is your heart. And your heart is connected to your soul, and your soul is your authenticity. So authentic expression is the only way that you actually unlock your pineal. You can do all of that decalcification work. You can eat all of your vegan food. You can throw away all of your sugar. You can do all of this wonderful, quote unquote, conscious, quote unquote, woke stuff that we could do for the outer levels of realization. But real talk, if you and your pineal gland are seeing sight and you could consciously interpret that sight, it's still a part of the illusionary matrix that you're trapped in. All forms of physical sensation that can be interpreted from your senses are a part of the illusion itself. And if you were not using said information to debunk the illusion, you were not doing actual spiritual work. You're doing nothing more than raising up the flesh of this reality. So, with that being said, the only way that you break through all of this is if you break through all of the illusionary layers of expectation, of culture, of family, of any external stimuli that you could name with all of the 5 senses. You turn all of them secondary, turn them off if you can to get back to your soul. Hell, this even plays into the shirt that I'm wearing. I didn't even realize that much. Look at that. El Cristo Rey. This is the shirt of the higher self, the shirt of your full on expression. Look at the symbols of it, the aspects of the higher self, the controlling frontal lobe parts, or whatever you want to call it. What direction are they going? It's going down. You have to bring this stuff down to the earth. You cannot be all high and mighty and full of yourself with your external expressions. You got to go down into these layers to get to your authenticity. And when you do so, that's how you do not get stuck in the cycle of the age that you're in. You don't get stuck in it one on the surface level, meaning you retain your full individualism and your full expression, but also too as it concerns your reincarnation cycles. It's just like this. We are stuck on a cycle of reincarnation, and we can exist in a quote unquote heaven space that is outside of this if we could stop reincarnating. And so when you go through the process of turning off all of the stimulators of this reality, which caused the reincarnation, because your consciousness is still fixated on this reality, it's still fixated on that division. When you unify all of these things, you collect your cells back together into one unified sphere, and then you re-enter back into the space that you were at before, because you're now collected in whole. You continue to reincarnate because you're fragmented, and you continue to try to pull all your parts together, but you can't pull them and you can't gather them, so they just swoosh and spread right back out again into the sea of reality. But if you could bring them and collect them all together back in, you pop right back out. So, yeah, it took me some ayahuasca to get back to this same place that I used to be at before, but now I'm at with a whole nother level of understanding of how much more of this works. I can put myself to better use. I can get on with my life. And you can too. And to be honest, you don't need ayahuasca. All you got to do is listen to yourself. You got the divine spark that is all knowing, all purposeful, all good, that has the answer to every single thing, literally. If you trust it at every moment that you got and use it and put it to use, you won't even need that shit. Stuff will just start to kick in, and you will go on about your way and living your best life. I ain't even heard that song. I just know everybody says it. But yeah, go forth, go within, figure yourself out, and go on about your business. That's what ayahuasca is. I'm Ahmad Brown, aka Son of Pharaoh. This is We Meditate. I love y'all. Peace.